Hello and welcome everyone to another Sales Hacker webinar. But this is not just another Sales Hacker webinar. We're actually making history right now, not only from the quality of our guests, but also it's the first one that's ever live from Costa Rica. So Rand was talking before it looks like I'm in a movie. That's what we're in right now. I'm down here working in China. But the topic that we're going to be discussing is one of my favorite topics. And it's the idea of the habits that salespeople should steal from marketing teams. I've actually presented on this just last week at a Surf conference down. I'm presenting this at a few other conferences download, and it's sort of this underlying theme of JumpCon, which is this digital sales transformation summit that is going down in Nashville in 43 days on October 24th. So if you haven't got tickets yet, I'll be there, and it's going to be a really cool time. So before I do intro my two guests, super quickly, just some housekeeping matters. If you've been on a Sales Hacker webinar before, you know that we record all of these, so you'll get it within 24 hours. But without fail, I will get 6 to 8 emails asking for the recording, but I promise I will send it. It's covered. Just take some time. Every time. And then number two, we do these for the community. We do these for the Sales Hacker community. So we've got a really, what we think is a fantastic discussion planned for you. But we want this to be led by the community. So there's a little Q&A function down at the bottom. Please go in there, introduce yourself, your role, your title. And if you have any questions that are relevant to what we're discussing, please let us know. I'll do my best to kind of weave them into the discussion. And even if they aren't totally relevant, we've got some time for Q&A at the end where you can just rapid fire at us for a little bit. All right, well, I got that out of the way. Now I can introduce my guests. I'm ridiculously humbled to be sharing the mic today with these two gentlemen. And Rand, I'll start with you, who I don't think needs much of an introduction, but I'll do it anyway. So Rand Fishkin, in 2004, co-founded the SEO software company Moz. Many of you have probably heard of it. You will have heard of it if you're a marketer. You served as a CEO until 2014, and then in 2018, you actually left and you founded SparkToro, which is a software and data company focused on how people understand how and where to reach their target audiences, which is super important right now in the world that we live in as everything is getting noisier. And then also the author of Lost and Founder, a painfully honest field guide to the startup world, which you wrote in 2008 as well. And of course, you spend a lot of time keynote speaking on marketing and entrepreneurship. And in your spare time, you're hanging out with your wife or eating pasta. That's Rand in a nutshell. So Rand, welcome to the community, man.
Thanks for having me, Scott. It's great to be here.
I love it. So if you had one pasta dish that you could eat, you had to eat just one for the rest of your life, where are you going with it?
Oh boy. I mean, carbonara is probably my favorite go-to, but that is a heavy dish to be eating every day.
All the time.
I think you'd have to, I feel like that's a once a week kind of pasta, maybe a once a month kind of pasta, but yeah. Gosh, that's probably going to be my vote anyway. I do love a great amatriciana or like a squid ink with seafood. But basically, if it's pasta and it's al dente and it's good, I'll eat it. I'm going to love it. I'm happy.
I love it.
It could be cacio e pepe, right? Just like 3 ingredients. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm. That's my girlfriend's favorite, actually.
Yeah.
All right. And joined by Laval Chichester, who is the CMO of Jump Crew and founder of GrowthSkills.co. Again, extremely impressive background. Formerly, you built and ran the search content and voice group for Mullen Media Hub and Profero. You made Ad Age's 2015 40 Under 40, which is amazing. Reason for that was you turned the search group at Profero into a multi-million-dollar business in less than a year, which helped you guys get acquired by IPG. And you're really a growth-focused sales and marketing executive. You've helped brands make millions of dollars on and offline. 13 years developing sales and digital marketing strategies for some extremely just kind of well-known brands, just like Apple, just like Twitter, Experian, Western Union, Kaiser Permanente, Harley Davidson. The list goes on. And you also don't want to mess with this guy because I hear you're a second-degree black belt and a bare-knuckle karate champion, which is insane. Rand, you didn't know that.
A little bit.
That's cool. And you similar to Rand, you keynote and lecture at NYU, Baruch College, Brooklyn College, and have actually taught courses there as well. So we got the two people to be tackling this subject. And thanks for sharing the time with us today. But before we jump into it, I think it would be really helpful for me and for all of us to kind of frame this conversation. This is Sales Hacker. We have a predominantly sales audience, but because this title kind of appeals to both, it'd be interesting to see what the split is of people joining us right now. So we're going to do a super quick poll, and just if you can let us know what best describes your role. Is it more sales focused or more marketing focused? And we'll give that about 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll stop that there. All right. Makes sense. We are on Sales Hacker, so 84% is sales, and then 16% coming from the marketing side of the house. So we'll definitely use that. And I don't know about you, Laval, but that seems like really good news to me that a bunch of salespeople are interested in leveling up and learning from the marketing side of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my background is marketing, and I now lead a sales and marketing company, Jump Crew. And it's interesting to see. The one thing I really love about salespeople, and this is no disrespect to the marketers, because I think the marketers are always interested in learning. Salespeople they have to be disciplined by the nature of their job in terms of like having a schedule, because if they don't optimize their time, then they're going to have a smaller pipeline, and they're not going to be able to close their deals at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter. So it's just a different sort of intensity. And again, I come from a marketing background, and I'm in this new atmosphere, and so, I really appreciate that sort of relentlessness in trying to learn. And just a message to everyone here, there's only two types. I used to want to be a naturalist, and studying nature, I learned that there's only two types of relationships in nature, right? There are symbiotic relationships and there are parasitic relationships. So every flower needs a bee, every bee needs a flower. That creates ecosystems on the planet, right? Mosquitoes, they drink their blood, they leave, they spread disease, and, we don't like that. But it's humans and corporations that can consciously choose to be symbiotic and parasitic. So why this matters, you've got, this marketing type and this sales type, or this marketing skill set and this sales skill set, but they're symbiotic. And what I've learned is that the next generation of sales and marketers are going to have both skill sets, because if you don't, you're just missing out, right? So in order to be better at my job at Jump Crew, I hired a sales coach to teach me sales, and it just opened up my mind. Like it's mind blowing, right? So I think Rand and I want to give that gift of sort of planting the seed to open up your mind to just learn all about that you can for marketing, because at the end of the day, it's going to level you up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have to thank you, Laval, for teeing up this conversation way better than I did. I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. And everything you said there is riddled with truth. And I think when I look at my personal career, it's because somehow I stumbled upon that knowledge too of, in order to me to be the best salesperson I could, I was a control freak, so I wanted to control more of the process and not rely as much on marketing, but I needed to understand everything that they were doing, and then it was going to help me be a better seller and do a lot of what they were doing on a macro level and bringing it to kind of the micro level of what I was doing. Okay, so before we go in and we start saying, hey, here are all the things that you should start doing that marketing does really well, I think it would be helpful if we just start off defining what makes a good marketer in the modern era. And Rand, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think a marketer today, the skill set is somewhat dependent on the business organization that you're trying to help out. It's become a bifurcated field in a lot of ways. There's sort of a highly technical marketer, right? Folks who work on things like conversion rate optimization, web analytics side of things, technical SEO, programmatic buying, those sorts of things. And then there are marketers who are almost exclusively or much more biased to the creative side, right? And that is creating the content, content marketing, social media marketing, influencer marketing, and numerous other channels that intersect. I think SEO is both creative and technical. I think you could argue that paid advertising is both creative and technical. But the thing that makes a marketer great is empathy. They have a deep, holistic understanding of not only their customer, but their audience. And I think this is often one of the big differences between sales and marketing is that sales folks, in my experience at least, rarely talk to an audience who is uninterested in buying their product, right? If a salesperson can qualify you as being uninterested in the product, then they don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste your time as a salesperson. That is a waste of your energy. As a marketer, those people are critical to spreading your message, to reaching the publications and people that influence the audience, to growing your market share and your audience addressable size. And that the creativity and the technical side of things, those are the skills that you apply once you have the empathy for the audience that you want to reach and you understand them well, so that you can create what they want to consume, read, share, engage with, move down the funnel with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points. The empathy for your audience, if you can find ways to increase your empathy or put yourself in your buyer's head, the more opportunity, the better. One thing that I often tell younger sellers to go do is typically the persona that you sell into, there's one of those at your organization. So go set up a reoccurring bi-weekly meeting with them where you buy them lunch and you just talk about what their day-to-day looks like, and you just let them vent, and that's going to tell you a lot about how you can get inside their head. So Rand, there's these two buckets, kind of this creative versus technical. If I'm a salesperson, I have a million different things going on, and I'm looking to layer on some skills. Do you think that you would spend more time building out the creative element of the skill set or the technical?
I think it depends where where the challenge lies in your sales process and sales funnel. It tends to be the case that the higher up the funnel that you go, more top of funnel is often but not always has more creative demand, because you need to be able to generate the ideas, the content, the positioning, the messaging, the PR, all those kinds of things that will initially bring folks to your brand, to your product, to your website. If it is lower down in the funnel, it's often things like analytics and technical optimizations of the website, technical optimizations of the conversion path. There may be some sides of the programmatic advertising, the retargeting and remarketing, bringing people back, tagging them properly, following them through the funnel, getting as much information about them as you can, all those kinds of things that leans in the technical direction. That's not to say one or more is exclusive, but you may be able to identify those. It's just a needs-based thing, right? If you tell me, hey, my sales funnel is full. I'm talking to as many people as I possibly can. My problem is qualifying better folks, or talking to more right people, or talking to bigger ticket customers, those kinds of things. Then I think that can be both a creative and a technical problem, depending on where it sits. And same problem if, hey, I just can't get enough people into the top of my funnel. There's just not enough leads coming through our website. Much of the time, that can be addressed both ways, right? You can do technical optimizations that might bring a lot more search traffic or advertising traffic, and you can do creative things that might bring more content and social and search traffic.
Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of
there's not one answer to that question, unfortunately.
Yeah, it would be nice if there was. You got to do a little self-diagnosis and then double down on which ones.
It'd be too easy.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't need this webinar. Okay, so Laval, in your eyes, then let's kind of inverse that question. And what makes a good seller in the modern era? And then maybe we'll talk about some of the overlaps there.
So I think a good seller, I think empathy has to be a part of it, but a natural curiosity and just a natural need to actually want to help solve the client's problem, because that's what is, and being patient enough to actually just ask the right questions, right, to get to the actual problem. Because a lot of the times, and I think, this is a limit that marketers have, is that marketers have so many tools, right? And they know how to use the tools, and they'll say, okay, I've analyzed it. Here's the solution to the problem. And they may be right, but it might not be the solution to the problem that needs to be solved absolutely right now. So, right. And so I think, and this is personally my experience, I've had to learn how to listen and put away some of the research, even though it's right. And I know I got it. This is perfect solution. But if I would just lead with that and try and push that as the solution, I wouldn't have spent the time to actually ask the right questions and keep going and keep going and keep going. And yes, that was right for one part of it, but I've found that there's a deeper need that, they'll buy the other thing, your solution for sure. But if you get them, and a lot of times it's like they're actually thinking with you through things, right? That's what questioning is. And then they're like, oh man, this is amazing. I just thought of this thing. And you're like, oh, great. And then, then if you've done your job right, they'd want you to help solve that, right? Be the solution to the problem. So I think it's just really being patient and curious to learning more and asking the right questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely agree. Patience, curiosity, very, very important in selling, and I would say marketing as well. Do
you find that it's a challenge? This is from someone, right, who has a deep marketing background, but virtually no sales background. Do you find that it's a challenge for salespeople specifically to not stereotype their sort of customers, right? That hey, I've seen a pattern, right? I've sold 20 accounts, so the next 100 are surely going to look the same, and so they get into a very similar pattern matching type of thing in order to achieve efficiency in their process, and therefore, hurt their close rate or potentially don't speak to people the way they want to be addressed. It feels really challenging to me, at least just from the outside, to balance that one size fits all so that I can be a very efficient salesperson to I need to customize my message, my style, my answers to questions, which questions they have, they need. Does that happen in sales, or do you find that that's not really a problem because of the qualification process, or the funnel process, or something else?
Laval, I'll let you tackle this one too, but for me, I think it is definitely a problem. It's funny when you look at a lot of, sales training, that's what it's kind of teaching you to do, is to create shortcuts, bucket people into personas, go through your personalized script, but that's kind of what it is going down these different tracks. Whereas I think, Laval, to your point, like a really good salesperson doesn't do that, and it's a blank canvas every time.
Yeah, I think it's a difference between good and great, right? Like, now living in this, I could tell my great salespeople versus the good ones. The good ones will do that, and I also think that comes with experience too. Like you train that way, and then you're just going to do that until one day you sort of you either experience a lot of closes where you have to say, wait, something's wrong, and you do the introspect and test your methods. And like I see some of my great salespeople, and I'm like, man, I'm taking notes. These dudes, what? It's just really, they just leave room. I don't even know how to explain it. Right? It's just like talking with a friend. Is how would they make it seem? Yeah. It's just that thing. I can't put that into words.
No, I've seen exactly what you're talking about. I've had that experience of being sold to, right, as a CEO and executive and founder, where there's sort of a I treat you like a lead, right? And okay, Moz is, when I was there, right? Moz is a $40 million a year company doing these things, so you need this, so you need that, so we'll sort of follow the script, and it's an efficient script, and I don't think it didn't feel necessarily wrong to me, right? Their assumptions about the business were not incorrect. They had done their research, but those were very not nearly as effective as the salespeople who I felt like treated me as a human being and had this.
It's almost like
they seemed not to care if they got the sale. They were mostly interested in learning more about me and about Moz and what I was up to and what the company was up to, and could they be helpful in ways that maybe had nothing to do with their business. And it was just relationship building. And then also, if they had a great product, we would often buy from them, right? And that, I don't know how to handle that when you have a tremendous volume, right? I think this is one of the advantages, the core advantages that marketers get, right, is that marketers can be relatively volume agnostic. You can get 10 people through your marketing funnel, or 100 people, or 10,000, or 100,000, and it doesn't take much demand out of you, right? Maybe your AWS spend goes, but otherwise, it's the same. But for a salesperson, I wonder how you handle that sort of, how do you be human to everyone? It just seems hard.
I think it's like a natural default. Like the great salespeople that I've seen, their natural default is that they've learned that over time. I personally don't know if you could teach that, but you learn that over time, I think. And then I think then it becomes discipline. Just really, your day is like scheduled, right? And that's the only way you could deal with volume. And you won't get
your
to
day
everyone,
is scheduled.
but that's what
the
I'm
entrepreneur's nightmare.
There's definitely a point here too of we have to define what the sales process is, because there is transactional sales processes that you're good. Some is still a volume play, whether those sellers are going to be around forever, because I think you can automate more and more of that. But as your kind of the deal size goes up, it's less transactional. I think you have to find a way to get your buyer out of the default setting of I'm getting pushed down this funnel, and it's almost like you have a sense of like childlike wonder. You're like going on down this path with your buyer. And there's something that I wrote about yesterday, and it's this idea of escaping competition through authenticity. So it's a Naval Ravikant, who's a genius. Go check out his stuff if you haven't. But he talks about how in the information age, knowledge isn't power anymore. It's a commodity. And so too many people, salespeople, lean on their product knowledge or their sales process knowledge. And it's not enough, because then your buyer's spidey senses, if you will, go off, and it's not enough. So I think one of the ways you can escape that is by being original, be novel, and authentic, which is you can't fake it, which is shitty news because it's not a template. That's what you need to win as a seller today. I think that's part of why we've seen kind of this personal branding explosion.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
I mean,
just
this has been
leveraging.
a
Marketers figured
fascinating
this.
trend, right? Evolved
Yeah.
in the marketing world, right? Of course, we've seen this this rise that I think has seemed quite strange to primarily to demographics that are kind of 35 plus. Of why would you pay more attention to this 18-year-old on YouTube or this 21-year-old on Instagram than you would to someone who's an expert in their field, and has a lot more experience and has a great website? You can't get nearly as much. What draws people to that experiential kind of selling and that very surface level driven thing? But I think there's an element of personality and an element of newness, of difference, of authenticity that, and also of disruption, right? Like this is, I know that whatever, right? My parents and grandparents won't understand this. I know that this is not how the world has trained me to take in information, and therefore it's interesting to me, right? Because it is novel, exactly to your point, Scott.
Yeah. It's super interesting, and I think it's funny because, like you said, marketers figured this out a really long time ago. That's why they started investing in brand, right? It's not just what your company, the products and the service that you offer, it's the brand behind it. And that's why the kid on YouTube is more appealing, because I understand what they stand for versus
at its
what
core,
they know or what they.
Yeah, at its core, I think there is a shared spectrum of great storytelling, right? So great salespeople that I've been sold by, right? They have a great story to tell. Great brands are built on stories, whether they're completely true or not. And I think that great marketers are telling a great story all the way through their funnel, right? They're guiding this singular path that people can empathize with, that resonates with them, that speaks to mission and vision and values, but also speaks to the problem that they have, right? You're telling your story in a way that solves my problem. And I think that when marketing does that really well, it can scale extraordinarily throughout the funnel. And with a salesperson, maybe this is part of what sales can take away from marketing, is that if you build that right story, maybe you tell it in 100 different ways, right? Every time you get up on stage, every time I get up on stage and tell the story of SparkToro or the story of Moz before that, it was slightly different, right? But it always carried the same themes throughout. And that was true whether I was speaking to a crowd of other entrepreneurs or marketers who might be our customers, or to my internal team and staff and people who we might hire and recruit. And I think that scalability is something that can go from the marketing, right? Marketing has learned that this story resonates with our customers and our audience and their influencers. And now you can productize and process that, turn that into a process that salespeople could use, right? Take that story that's resonating, that you know is working for this audience, make that part of your the story that you tell during the pitch.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's an extremely actionable takeaway, because when you're up there and you're keynoting, that's sales, right? You're trying to win over an audience of people, and that's sales on a really micro level. And everyone knows when they look at when they look at a speaker, no one likes the canned stuff. You can tell as soon as a speaker is going that. So thinking about every time you're on a sales call is almost like being on a stage. I think that would be really
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I have this, Laval, I mean, you know this well, right? You and I both do this, right? Where we have sort of an obsession with trying to get the highest audience score from the, right? The higher speaker score from the audience that you're presenting to. I'm sort of obsessed with that. But a big part of that is telling people stuff they don't expect to hear. Right? Like I want everyone in the audience to be like, oh shit, did he just say that? I can't believe he's talking about that, right? And it has this authenticity and humanness and ability to empathize, I think that works very well. I am even of the opinion that this is something that's currently working in American politics, right? That you can sort of see this, not necessarily in a healthy way, but you can see it working when people say things that you don't expect them to say, that are new and novel, that feel authentic, even if they have lots of ulterior motives. Yeah,
it's a super interesting point. And we'll try not to go down the politics route here, but it would be a very, very interesting.
Did we want to talk about religion after that, or no?
Yeah. It would be a fascinating discussion, but maybe not a lot. Maybe offline. So what sales and marketing can learn from religion and politics? That would be cool. Okay, let's change.
I want to attend that. Do that one next, Scott.
Yeah, let's do it.
You guys are brave enough to come with me. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I want to change gears a little bit because we got some marketers and we got some sales folks. Laval, you have this really interesting insight because you play in both worlds. What things would marketers love sales folks to know? We got a ton of sales folks. You know, there's always alignment issues. If you were to represent the marketers out there, and you can speak to the sales team right now, what do you think that marketers would love sales folks to know?
You know, I think and I've seen this in my experience on my teams, like when you collectively come together and have the shared goals, you could really, really work together in that symbiotic way, right? So like one of the things that work really, really well with my current team, they have the same goal. So my marketing guy, say my paid search or social person, drives a lead through messaging to a landing page that converts, and it goes to a salesperson, right? So what happens weekly is as the deals come through and either get disqualified or don't close, my salesperson gives that information back from a messaging standpoint to my marketing, my paid search person, and then we change the copy and the landing page because our sales guy is on the front line and we want to feed them because we all grow, right? And he knows now because we told him we're going to do this, and now the salesperson is like, oh man, I have to get any feedback I can to give back in real time to the paid search and social team, right, to optimize these pages. And then my creative team designs the collateral, and it's a cycle that runs where we're always talking because we don't see a difference between each other. The roles might be different, but we don't see a difference. And when sales go in, if they're selling a marketing product like SEO, if they need some muscle to come close, we'll show up and help close it, right? So I think just being open in the first place to that there's a place in the future that this could happen is one, because that openness, I've seen just like, oh, marketing is soft, I'm just going to not talk to them. And they're full of fluff and, you know, impressions and who cares, right? So there is that mentality that you have to chip away at before you could get to the place where it's just like, oh, could actually be a thing. And then if I would, so I'll stop there.
No, I think that was fantastic. So shared KPIs, super important. One of my old mentors put it a really good way. There should never be a time that either sales or marketing, that one team wins and the other one doesn't. There should never be a time that happens. That's when the animosity happens, when you're like, rah, sales, you guys are the best, you sourced and closed this deal. And the marketing's like, okay, well, we've been low-key running ABA campaigns on the one person that you magically called and got a meeting. We've been doing that for months.
Exactly.
And then
so all of the love everyone gets the recognition. But what really, so like when I came, my marketing guy had to get leads. So he'd get 1,000 dog shit leads to the sales guy. Then the sales guy get those leads and he can't close them. So he's just like, this is crazy. And then my sales team is just like, you know what? We're just going to sell whatever we can. So then they start selling wildness that then goes into a contract. And then when marketing delivery gets it back, they're just like, wait, this is impossible to, like, we don't groom dogs? What are you doing? This is not the business that we're in. We can't, wait, you promised 10,000 leads? This is like impossible to deliver that. And it's because they didn't have the shared goals. So what I did was I basically said, it doesn't matter the volume of the leads. They have to be high quality leads, right? So you have to qualify, and those leads have to come in at a low cost per acquisition, and then they have to convert at a high rate. So those are the numbers you jabronis are going to work towards. And basically, they really started coming together and working on it. And, you know, we turned the business around from bleeding out to now 10% growth every year. And it's literally because of and it's kudos to the team too. Like, you know, some people don't want to hear that. Some people just want to do their own thing, but in the nature of working together, you know, and we're pushing and we're growing. So it's really cool. I've seen it happen. I witnessed it. So like, there is a way, but it really comes down to shared goals and KPIs, because that's how you know. It's like true north. We're going to take that hill. Okay, as a team, we're going up that hill, versus like, I'm going to hang out over here and you hang out over there, and then we're just going to be mad at each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get the sense that there's sort of this, one of the challenge in alignments fundamentally sits kind of outside the realm of what individual marketers and individual salespeople can control. And it feels a lot like a management and executive problem, right?
It is 100% that.
So I think that it feels to me like if you are a salesperson or a marketer and you don't have clear alignment or understanding of, hey, do we have the same goals? Are our teams being measured in the same ways? And can we transparently see each other's goals so that we know whether we're correctly contributing to the right thing? And if the answer to that is, no, you can't, you don't need to worry about that, or actually for some other reason, sales and marketing don't have aligned goals, that feels like hey, let's elevate this problem to the next level of leadership, because until we can see each other's numbers and understand that we have shared goals and see how each other contribute to the overall, purpose, we're always going to have this core disagreement, and so we're never going to be able to see eye to eye.
Absolutely.
And that elevation feels like it's a risky thing to do. I know I've talked to many employees after I stepped down as CEO at Moz. I got to be seen as more of an individual contributor, right, inside the company, and had plenty of conversations kind of learning how people viewed whatever, their CMO or the CEO or me when I was CEO. And I think it takes some chutzpah, right, and some willingness to take risks to be able to, hey, I need a meeting with the CMO and maybe the CEO too. Yeah. Do you realize that the sales and marketing teams are not aligned? Do you realize that we can't see each other's goals and that we don't know how we're contributing to the funnel? And so this conflict exists between us. That's on you to solve, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you don't need to phrase it that, right? But that conversation feels like one that needs to be had. And yeah, I'm curious if you guys have seen that happen. Does that ever come from below, or does it only have to come top down?
In my experience, so it has to come from the top down, but I think you can get it started by, Laval, you actually mentioned this, and I wanted to double click on it, is by creating these feedback loops. So when I'm on the front lines as a seller and I have a good conversation, I was like, wow, that messaging I just used really worked. And then I go over to my demand gen team and I'm like, hey, just so you know, I think that, if we change maybe our ad script here or whatever to this, it really just worked and resonated with our buyer. And they're open to hearing that, which 90% of the time they will be, because they want to get better. And then that works. And then that marketing person gives the credit and sends out an email and whatever. It's like, oh, that was so amazing. Sales just helped us lift this ad by whatever percent. And then vice versa. You can do the same thing, and then it starts creating this thing, and people start feeling more like a team, and then maybe it's easier to go and have that conversation once everything's kind of rolling already.
Yeah, I think giving credit and taking credit and wanting credit are often at the core of these disagreements, even when there's alignment above. So that's a great point, Scott.
Yeah.
yeah, I wonder if there's a way to gamify or institute as a cultural practice this idea of sharing credit and giving credit and sourcing ideas from other places. I know one of the challenges that we had at Moz, certainly, and I've seen this in other organizations as well, is treating anecdotes as data. Mm-hmm. Right? So someone will say, hey, someone like the CEO or the founder, right? Me, I'll go to my marketing team and say, hey, I spoke about this at this event and it really worked. I think this is an exciting thing. Can we test out this messaging? Can we try this, this new thing? And since it comes from, when I was CEO at least, right, comes with authority, there's sort of this, well, I guess we have to try that, even though I don't really trust this Rand guy. Like, it worked for him one time. Does that really, and what if it just works because it's him, not because it's actually effective, right? And so there's all these reasons that can sit in people's head about why something doesn't work, which I think that makes it doubly important for marketing, at least to have a testing framework. And it makes it really important for sales folks to understand how testing works, right? So if for example, in your example, Scott, you say, hey, this message worked great, it closed this deal. And you go to Laval and his team, and you're like, hey, man, can you test this messaging on the site? And Laval, you're kind of, well, I'm a little skeptical, but sure, Scott, we'll go test it. That means you can't test anything else that month, because the conversion rate optimization process, right, requires whatever. In order to get high confidence intervals on whether the messaging worked, you need 9,000 people to have clicked through the funnel, at least step one. And so you're not going to know for 30 days, which means you can't run any other experiments. So when someone says like, hey, just test this to marketing, they don't understand the opportunity cost that's lost in the, well, if I test that, I can't test anything else, right? Because we don't have enough volume coming through. We're not Amazon.com. We can't just test it in an hour. So I think that those challenges really do exist. And that's why there needs to be some way of like turning anecdotes into data and then testing the things where you have enough data to make it worth the while.
Yeah, weighting system.
Excellent point. Yeah. That's a great point, and good for salespeople to know that. That gives them insight into marketers. Like, I'm giving them all this gold, and they're not doing anything with it.
Right. And like, why aren't you listening to me? Well, look, if I did listen to you, we would still be on, the 7th of your experiments that came from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
I also think that's a transparency thing, right? Like showing the work that's happening, right? So we're having an issue with that too, where the design team, like, you can't see how much work is actually happening with the design team, even though they're doing a lot of work. So opening that up so that the teams can see, like, oh man, okay, if we do test this, then that has to go, that sort of thing. So I think there's a transparency there that also needs to happen to make it work.
And it can be really helpful to do this beforehand instead of when the problem arises. Because I think once you get into the discussion of, hey, I have this great idea, well, here's why we can't implement it, it immediately becomes confrontational and you don't totally believe the person. But if you upfront tell them before they ever bring you an idea, hey, here's how our process works. Then when they bring you the idea, right. Oh yeah, we'd love to test that. Remember, the process works that way I told you last month. It's this. Oh yeah, that's right. You did tell me that. Okay, let me go try and validate it with another 10 or 50 individual people. And if it works on a lot of them, if the messaging works a bunch of times and it's not just 1 or 2 anecdotes, then please test it, because then I'll have higher confidence. We can all have higher confidence that it's going to work.
Yeah.
Ren, what I love about your book, is that all these startups go through this, right? All companies go through it, regardless of the size, so that all these, like Rand's book tells amazing stories of how to solve this, but like you have to also understand it's solvable. Someone's been through it before, and most of the smart people write it down and give it to you so that you could learn from it, right? So, but again, it goes back to the openness and the willingness to sort of empathize and learn and be curious and work together as a team with your marketing or your sales counterpart.
Yeah, and understanding that people are people, and our human biases and psychology is always going to play a role in this stuff, right? We can't be efficient machines, and therefore we always have to do extra work up front, ahead of time, hopefully outside of times of conflict and confrontation, so that I think this is true for salespeople as well, right? Fundamentally, sales is relationship building all the way up to point of sale, of deal signing, of pricing, and because of that, you are creating the relationship so that there can be healthy dialogue when this point of conflict comes up, right? Because sales isn't inherently someone wants a better deal and someone wants to make more money, right? And the same thing is true with any relationship that you have internally in your organization between sales and marketing, or sales and executive team, or sales and company purpose and vision and CEO. And so the more you can do up front to set expectations, the less you will have these frustrating pushbacks when comes to shove.
Yeah,
we call it heartburn.
Yeah,
heartburn. The non-transparency heartburn. Eh? Yeah,
exactly.
All right, so we've got about 13 minutes or so left, and I want to touch on like a few really tactical pieces that we can leave people with, and we'll talk a little bit about personal brand as well. We touched on it, but I think it's important to talk through. And then I also want to get Rand your views on search and social and how that's affecting sales and marketing folks, because you're arguably had the most insight in the world on that answer. So
guru.
Yeah, exactly. And so as we go into this discussion, just quickly, so with JumpCon, for those who want to join us at JumpCon, everyone who hung out with us today, if you like this conversation we're having, we'll be continuing it at JumpCon. And there's a discount code. You can go to jumpcon.com. I think that's it, right?
Jumpcrew.com/JumpCon.
Cool. And then use SHVIP for a discount code. So come hang out with us. All right. So let's talk about what individual reps, I know we're going to have a lot of individual reps with us right now. What can they learn from a marketing organization and apply to their patch to create more pipeline in the next quarter, the next year? What are some activities that you see that they can go and implement, ASAP? And Laval, I'll start with you on this one.
So I'm going to try and keep this short and tell you about a little bit of my experience, and then do like short-term, long-term, right? So the way a lot of people don't know how to learn, and I got lucky that I grew up in a karate school and I learned actually how to develop skills, right? And it's time and repetition and all of that. And so when you're thinking about all of this, so we're going to give you tactics and all of that, but don't try and learn everything at once because you're going to fail. And when you build your learning platform, what you want to do is you want to learn a skill and then a next skill so that they compound over time and be more impactful. So what happened with me is in school, I went for creative writing and to Brooklyn College. Then I said, oh, you know what? I should learn how to create videos. So I read Final Cut Pro for Dummies, taught myself how to edit. Now I have 2 skills. Then I started a business and I was like, oh, I'm going to do video production, Coca-Cola, vitamin water with my clients. I was like, this is great. They love me for video, but things are going online. So I taught myself how to build websites on WordPress, and then that's another skill. Then the next year I was like, man, no one's coming to this site. So I found SEO, and Rand was producing a lot of content. So I basically learned a lot of my stuff. This is why Brand hates this. I love embarrassing him. Like, this man helped start the multi-billion-dollar industry that is SEO and content marketing, and gave people, like, I was able to learn and get a job and feed my family, and now I'm the CMO. So thank you for that. But the point is, then I learned SEO. I'm like, whoa, people are coming to my site. And then fast forward, the next skill I had to learn that'll compound and make all of those skills more impactful was sales, right? So, but that's a planned thing over time. So what I tell you, so I told you that as a framework. So what you need to do now is, and I think you should really start with analytics. There's a ton of free courses. Take a course on analytics because it forces you to sort of get a framework of understanding your prospects' problems, right? So like one of the best things that I've used is like if they're willing to give you access to their analytics, right? Then you just spend some time in there. You know, you could help them solve problems and you could ask more meaningful questions depending on if their goal is like, everyone, I would hope, would have like a lead form on their page and those sorts of things, whether it be e-commerce or B2B, but just spending time in the analytics and understanding how to do that just changes your way of thinking about things, right? So if there's one skill I would start to develop right now is understanding analytics and how you could help your potential customer and your prospects like go through the data to help solve their problems, right? Because a lot of times they don't have that experience, right? So if you gain that as a skill and you're good at selling, there's nothing, you close everything.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so that is learn analytics, how they pertain to your platform, how people are interacting with your product service. Go and talk to CS wherever it owns that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Exactly.
So then you know, okay, how do people actually interact with our piece of software or our whatever it is that you're selling, and that's going to help you craft that narrative so much more effectively. That's a great.
Exactly, and a lot of the times we sell on behalf of clients, so we have to understand. It's a different challenge because we have to understand how clients come to, how their customers come to them. So like it's a trickier thing too, you know. So, but that having that mindset and that training that you'll develop over time, and like partner with your analytics guy. Just ask him, like buy him drinks and tequila, get him talking, and he'll teach you all sorts of stuff. And then you got a new friend. Like everyone needs to learn from someone. So I would do that right away, and that's real cheap. Just go to the bar. I think happy hour's coming up soon, and bring your analytics guy.
I love it. That's awesome. I love your talk about skill building and not trying to do it all at once. I'll share really quickly my personal, I think 4 things that I have a long ways to go. First, I looked at how concise and relevant marketing made their messaging, and salespeople, especially as we actually get more tenured, we overcomplicate things because we learn so much and we have all these paths and stories that we've done, is that we overcomplicate it. So I would do a quick exercise where write down your value prop and then cut out all the buzzwords and try and make it like one sentence, like 6 words if you can. That's the first thing that I started using. I started using basic, really simple language. Like I would talk to a 6-year-old because marketing does it really well. Number 2 was I learned how to build my own enablement material. You mentioned it. It's so easy to do this now. If you need a case study, go learn Canva in 20 minutes. If you want a video, like you can actually, depending on your organization, but you could have an interaction with one of your customers, you know, throw that into iMovie and put it up just as a personal resource, right? Like you can definitely do that. It will literally take you a day to learn these skills. It's getting easier to acquire some of these on the creative side. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing was I started showing up in communities. So you can type in right now on LinkedIn. If you sell to dentists, I did this exercise last week. There's a dentist community of 64,000 people on LinkedIn. Whoever your persona is, there. Start showing up there, not to pitch, not to share your company stuff, but to just start adding value. And then lastly, the brand, which we touched, which is start building a personal brand because marketers have figured this out. Those would be kind of my 4 things I would leverage. Rand, curious to hear your thoughts on this question.
Sure. I'm going to go, since Laval, you went higher level, I'm going to go super, super tactical and say that right now I think 2 of the channels that are most underinvested in and can bring you very, very quick high value returns are guest appearances on YouTube video channels that have lots of subscribers that reach your target audience. Those get a ton of engagement. They tend to drive a ton of branded search, right? So let's say, if it's Jump Crew, right, and you appear on whatever, Mixergy's video channel, you'll get literally thousands of people over the next few days searching for Jump Crew, going to your website. The same is true for podcasts. Podcasts are crazy listened to and super underinvested in. And so oftentimes either advertising or being a guest on those can have incredible reward in terms of just driving highly qualified or right kinds of visitors to your website who are interested in what you're doing. Assuming you have to have something interesting to share with the host though, right? You can't just, well, I want to be on a podcast because I want to sell my audience. No one's going to invite you, right? You have to say, well, I've done a bunch of these interesting things. I think your audience would love this conversation because of X, Y, and Z. I think this is generally a good way to think about marketing broadly is what is the thing that people want to pay attention to you for? Who's going to care and why? Who's going to help you amplify the message and why? That works really well. My two other hyper tactical things. Scott, you mentioned the video tactic, right? Like taking a video of yourself talking to a customer. If you are doing screencast recording, like if you want to walk someone through something that's happening on the web or in your software product, on your desktop, whatever, Soapbox from Wistia, which I'm not affiliated with in any way, but oh, actually, wait, that's not true. One of the co-founders of Wistia is an investor in my new company. But regardless, I would be promoting their stuff. So Soapbox is just this crazy simple recording tool that anyone can use. You can learn it faster than Canva. You can learn it in 2 minutes. Takes high quality videos that are super shareable, really, really easy to show to other people. It's great for like, hey, in 30 seconds, let me show you how to do this thing with our product or learn this process. And then the second hyper tactical thing is many times marketing things that you do, like an appearance on a podcast or a YouTube channel, is hard to attribute because people don't click directly through. There's no way to click, right? Oh, I'm listening, and then I click on your website. You know, what you do is you search Google. But Google Trends will let you see hour by hour the spikes in branded search volume. So you could go into Google Trends, search for your brand name, right? Jump Crew, whatever it is, see that, oh, when we were a guest on this podcast, look, you can see the growth in our branded search volume after the podcast launch or when the YouTube video came out and it pinged all the channel subscribers. So that's a great way to say like, hey, look, boss, this really works. This thing that I did, we should give it credit even though it just looks like branded search.
That's amazing. I'm writing a note on that right now because I didn't know that last one, and that's huge.
You can do it with commercials too, right? Like if you want to do advertising campaigns, which of course are very hard to attribute, you can see the same thing. Go into Google Trends, watch an NFL game, see what the branded search spike looks like when you see a new advertiser pop up in a region. You can go to oh, I'm watching the Falcons game. I go to Atlanta. I look at, hey, here's the whatever spike in search volume for that advertiser that day in that region. Boom. Now you know what you can expect in terms of numbers of, rough numbers of people who are going to be searching for you if you run an ad at that time.
That's awesome. And I'm going to try and sneak one more question in here, Rand, for you. We got about 1 minute. Updates in search and social. These are going to continue to rapidly change and advance the way that the jobs of sales and marketing people interact. If you can quickly give us some of your thoughts on that, I would love to hear.
I think the biggest trend in both of these is what's being called the death of the click. So think about your own search behavior, your own use of social media. I guarantee almost certainly 10 years ago when you performed a search on Google, 90% of the time you would click a result, right? After you search, you click a result. On your phone, when you search, very often you don't click anything. Google answers the query for you. Same thing is true in social. You go, you're scrolling through Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. The last thing you're going to do is click on the actual link. You look at the comments. You look at who liked it. You scroll to the next thing, but you don't click. And so as a result, from a marketing and sales standpoint, I think that one of the most important trends is conveying your message very, very quickly in the title of your content, which still can get shared, and in the title element of your web pages, which is what Google shows in the search results, right? And the description, the snippet that shows up in the results. That is how you control sort of what people learn and see through search and social in the modern era. I wrote a post that was cited a bunch of times recently, analyzing some data from a clickstream company, JumpShot, that less than half of all Google searches across desktop and mobile blended now result in a click. And that trend is just going to keep continuing, and the same is going to be true in social. So you have to convey those messages in ways that don't just draw clicks.
That's awesome.
But Scott, I think because of this trend, I think your point about showing up to these communities in real life really, really matters, because Google can't really affect that, you know? And that's why we're throwing JumpCon. It's like getting people in a room and showing them some love is the point, you know? Showing up to the communities.
Absolutely. Well, on that point, connect with these two definitely on LinkedIn. They're always putting out great nuggets. And come hang out with us in person at Nashville, October 24th. And if you want a discount code, it's SHWVIP. Rand, Laval, thank you so much for your time, guys. And community, thanks for hanging out with us.